Hi, everybody. Good morning. This is David at Wasabi. We're going to get started here shortly. I just want to go through a couple house cleaning items. One, if you have any questions, you should be able to find a question box in the dashboard of the GoToWebinar control panel. If you have any questions, type them in there, and we'll get to them at the end after Hank and Dave and I present. As we go through the presentation today, we're going to ask a couple poll questions just to get an idea of what you guys are looking at, what you've seen before, and the kind of operations you run. So, yeah, so please take the time just to click on the multiple choice questions and give us an idea of who's attending today. And so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to our webinar. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We fully understand and appreciate just how busy your schedules are, and so we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that this webinar is worthwhile and you have a chance to walk out of here with some new knowledge, maybe answer some questions you might have, or you know, if you have questions at the end of the webinar or they come to you, please feel free to contact us for more details. I'm David Boland, and I'm on the product marketing team here at Wasabi. Joining me today is David Gugic. He's from CloudBerry. At CloudBerry is now MSP 360, and I know I'm going to use them both interchangeably today because I'm still getting used to the name change. And Dave will talk a little more about that. We also have Hank Holbrook from Blue Sky Technologies. Hank he leads up the sales effort at Blue Sky. He's going to provide us an overview of the managed backup as a service that they offer. And how they use a combination of MSP 360 and Wasabi Cloud Storage to deliver the backup services to the customers. I know that we have a lot of folks on the line today, and I know that a bunch of you are probably struggling with just how to deliver backup and recovery services in the cloud and how to understand the areas in which you can either save or make money or help your customers you would like to be a trusted advisor to a lot of your customers. And so we're going to learn how MSP 360's managed backup solution will make your job a lot easier. We're going to learn why Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage is the best choice for cloud storage. And like I said, we'll talk to Hank about Blue Sky's technology, and he'll tell us a bit about how they've been successful with the solution of both MSP 360 and Wasabi. So quick agenda. You know, we're going to look at the motivations behind offering cloud backup services. We're going to look at the value of the cloud, and we're going to concentrate, of course, on the Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage piece. Like I said, we'll hear from Dave on CloudBerry's managed backup service and how it's designed to address the challenges of backing up data and how it protects everything, how you can report on everything, and how you can recover everything just about anywhere. And then again, Hank is going to tell us about Blue Sky and what they focus on. Located in Rhode Island, but they have customers all across the United States, a large footprint of customers, and he has some great stories to share with us. So we'll get right to it. I want to begin by answering the question, who is Wasabi and why should I care? Who the heck is Wasabi? Well, simply put, Wasabi is the hot cloud storage company. We deliver cloud data storage on demand. We are 80% less expensive and up to 6 times faster than most of the first generation cloud storage services that are on the market today. First generation cloud services, I consider Amazon's S3, Microsoft Azure's Blob, Google Cloud's Object Store. Our mission is to make storing data simple, affordable, fast, and secure. And by simple, I mean there's no complex service or pricing tiers. We're affordable because we're 80% less expensive than the others. Plus, there's no hidden fees for data egress or API requests or data transit charges. We're fast. Wasabi treats all data as hot. You can keep all your customers' data hot so it can be accessed in milliseconds instead of minutes or hours or possibly days if you need to get that back. And we're very secure. We offer 11 nines of data durability and 100% data immutability, which I'll talk about later. We were founded in 2015 by industry visionaries and pioneers David Friend and Jeff Flowers, both of whom had previously co-founded Carbonite. And for the past 2 years, we were named one of CRN's top cloud vendors, top 100 cloud vendors. And as we go through the presentation, you learn more about Wasabi and more about MSP 360. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. If I do a good job and I pique your interest, and I want you to go to our website and sign up for a 30-day free trial. What's nice about this free trial is that I'm not going to ask for any credit card information. I'm not going to ask for a phone number. You're not going to be automatically enrolled in anything. You're totally opted out. You won't get any phone calls. You get a couple emails saying, hey, your trial has started, and hey, your trial date is coming due. But what's cool about our trial is that it's, like I said, 30 days, 1 terabyte free, and you're not, you're not signing online for anything specific. We're not going to put you in the system automatically after 30 days. We don't have any credit card information. And it really is the best way to learn about Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage, the features and functionality and what we can do. And if at the end of 30 days, you don't see a need for it, totally fine. If the end of 30 days, you like it, but you're not ready for it, you come back anytime you want. And at the end of 30 days, if you do like it, it's all yours. You signed up. No phone calls, no pressure. So where do we begin? Why the cloud? Well, we've heard about the cloud. We've looked into what it can do for us. We've seen some webinars. We've read white papers. But the big questions are, what's truly available out there? What are the differences in the cloud providers? Where do I begin and why? And it's simple, really. Backup and restore or archiving is the best place to start your cloud journey. And the reasons are basically because the economics of the cloud is there for us now. It's easier to use than it has been in the past. And the challenges that are associated with on-prem storage are no longer applicable in the cloud. There's no need for specialized administrators. There's no long lead times for capacity expansion. You want capacity? You got it. There's no risk of investing too much or too little in new technologies. You don't pay up front for a bunch of storage that you may not use for another 12 or 18 months. And there's no constant change in facility requirements. There's no need for power, cooling, heating, all that stuff. Cloud is taking care of it for you. The economics are there now such that it makes financial sense to move data into the cloud. And backup and archive is a great place to begin. Operating on-prem storage consumes a lot of resources, like I said, in personnel, time, infrastructure. In many cases, some of us are using raised floor space. We're using lots of pieces of infrastructure, power, cooling, network. We're paying a lot for network attached storage, and we don't really need to do all of that. We've reached a point in the cloud maturity model. It's been around long enough where we can leverage a lot of the cloud solutions and benefit from the economics. And I know that Dave and Hank will talk about that a bit later, but the advantages of the cloud now are that it's not a CapEx cost, right? It's a low OpEx. There's no recurring power, cooling, rack space, software maintenance, or personnel. There's a little bit of OpEx, for recurring costs, but that's fine. And you're protected from obsolescence. You buy technology today, it may not be the best technology 12 or 18 months from now. In the cloud, it's going to be updating, especially if it's Wasabi. And you have increased security and compliance. If you have the need to provide compliance or regulatory requirements for your customers, the cloud is a good place to look because, especially on Wasabi's side, we hold a lot of certificates of compliance. We'll talk about that later. Now, you're probably asking yourself or asking me, David, the cloud is nothing new. AWS S3 object storage has been around for a long time. So how is this new? Well, you know what? Yeah, you're right. You're correct. It's been around for a while, and until now, AWS and to some point maybe Azure or GCP have been the only game in town. The first groups of customers that started moving to the cloud had limited options. The standard choices were S3, Azure, or GCP, all pretty much the same flavor of vanilla. Right? And in the early days, storage was a lot more complex than it is now. There were multiple storage tiers. You had your standard, your warm, lukewarm, cold, cold, or wicked cold. You had all kinds of different tiers that you need to worry about. They all had different costs and performance levels. So you had to also ask yourself, how did you know if your data was on the right tier? And what happens if you needed some of that data back? You want 10% back, 20% back, all of it back? How much was that going to cost you? And in worst case, what if you needed all of it back? And it wasn't there. So early days of cloud storage, the pioneers, yeah, they got a lot of arrows, and some things went wrong, and the pricing was a bit off, the performance was a bit off, and so there was a lot of I would say challenges to the early days of storage. But that has changed in the past few years, right? Like I said, Wasabi was founded 2 years ago by David and Jeff, and we came to market with the idea that not all clouds have to be created equal. The complexity associated with having multiple tiered offerings made it difficult to decide what tier to use. It became a project itself, just trying to figure out if you're on the right tier, or how long should I be on this tier before I move to another tier. It was the cloud had a name, had gotten a bad rep for being too complex, and it prevented a lot of folks from moving their services to the cloud, because you know what, you don't want to go to cloud class for 3 months to figure out exactly what you're going to do. You just want to be able to go online, set your policies, move some data, have a nice graphical user interface like the CloudBerry interface, and drag and drop. And that wasn't available, but it has become available the last couple of years. The old Cloud 1.0 or first generation clouds are now facing challenges, specifically from Wasabi. And so what Wasabi has done is we've delivered a single tier service that all of our storage is considered hot or instantly available. We offer a single pricing plan, and we charge a flat rate of 0.0059 per gigabit per month. It turns out, $5.99 per terabit per month. So it's a simple pricing. There's one line item. In addition to having a single pricing in one tier, there's no hidden fees associated with Wasabi's hot cloud. Other storage vendors will charge you to get your data back, egress fees. With AWS, that can be between 7 cents and 9 cents per gigabyte, depending on how much you're trying to get back. And the question you often have to ask yourself is, how do you know how much data you want back from the cloud in advance? Most people don't. It averages between 10 and 20% of what you have stored up there. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. In cases where things go wrong, you have to pull down a lot more than 20%. You're going to get charged a lot more than you expected. Let's talk about API requests, charges for API requests. Let's say you want to check on the data you have stored in the cloud. Check on the data you have stored in S3. You want to scan the data. You want to compare the names, sizes, dates, perform a simple checksum function to make sure that everything is copacetic and it has not been corrupted since you put it up there. Well, that's going to cost you too. And it may look small, a couple of pennies here, a couple of pennies there, but it does add up, and it will add up over time. You'll be nickel and dimed. The more the quantity of your data grows, the more you're going to end up paying. The more you want to check on it and manage it, the more it's going to cost you. With cloud vendors that have a multi-tiered architecture, egress fees for downloading data, fees for API requests and checking your data while it sits there are next to impossible to predict. Let's say something goes wrong at one of your customer sites and you need to restore his data. Getting that data back is going to cost you. And as an MSP, are you going to eat that cost, or are you going to pass that cost on to your customer who's trying to get himself back up and running because he lost his data somehow? There's always going to be a catch, right? So you have to be cognizant of the fact that just because you're looking at a price line that says 23 cents a month doesn't mean that that's all you're going to be charged when you need to get your data. Now, the big question usually pops up right about now. I see it all the time, and the question is, well, what is the catch? How can Wasabi be 80% less expensive than AWS, Azure, or Google? Yeah, 80% less expensive. So what's the catch? there isn't a catch. We are 80% less expensive than the first generation cloud providers, basically because our technology is a lot different. If you think about S3, it's been around for 16 years, 17 years, maybe a little bit more, somewhere between 15 and 20 years. It's decades old, right? The technology is old. It hasn't changed much since 2006. There are some things that have come to market from a technology perspective and innovations that Wasabi has been able to take advantage of. We can drive down the cost per gigabit to store data further than anybody else can. There's, I don't want to get too deep into the technology. Maybe someday we'll have a technology webinar that goes a little more deeper into things like shingled magnetic recording, helium-filled disks, and erasure coding. But those three things, real things, by the way, SMR, helium-filled disks, and erasure coding drops our price to deliver storage by almost 60%. Shingled magnetic recording is a way to record data onto a disk where we can consume 20% more of the disk space than, say, S3 can. So automatically we're putting 20% more data on a disk than S3 does. So we have a savings that we can pass on to the customers. Higher density disks, if we can get another 40% out of our helium-filled disks than SMR and than S3 or Azure or Google can, there's 40% cost savings we can pass on. And then erasure coding. Erasure coding gets kind of technical, but it's a way to restore or shouldn't say restore, I should say replicate your data across multiple disks within the cloud. It allows us to make copies of your data and secure it securely so it doesn't disappear. I'll talk more about that later, but erasure coding basically only adds 50% more capacity space to our cloud than the way that other folks do it. For instance, when AWS takes your data, they make multiple copies and they spread those copies out amongst the storage. You end up getting charged back for consuming storage. So you'd say you store 1 terabyte on AWS, you're really consuming 3 terabytes of disk space, and that's getting charged back to you. You may not know it, but it is. So that's why they're 23 cents, and that's why we're 5.9 cents. Anyhow, that gives you a bit of an idea about why we're better off, why you're better off pricing from Wasabi versus one of the Cloud 1.0 vendors. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about durability and protection. And this, you'll get durability. Yeah, it's not that sexy, but you'll want to know what durability numbers mean. Data durability is a way to calculate the ability to keep data intact and not allow bits and bytes to degrade through media decay, lost drives, lost arrays, or some other corrupting influence. It allows you to rest comfortably at night knowing that the data you've stored is there for the long run. With 11 nines, that's 11 nines, 99.9999999% of durability, you can expect to lose about 1/100000th of your data over a year, right? And so it adds up to some crazy marketing numbers. And what will happen is that you'll see data durability comes. Everyone offers data durability. All you have to worry about it is just how it's done is the important piece to know. The probabilities of data loss can vary with the size and number of object stores and where they're written to the disks. If the type of drives used are older, then they may not be able to offer integrity checking that Wasabi can. Both Wasabi and Amazon have both calculated 11 nines of data durability for object storage, but how we do it is a bit different. We're going to publish a paper on that. You can probably get some information now on data durability on the Wasabi site. I guess the big picture is that I want you to be comfortable with knowing that when your data is stored in Wasabi, it's durable and it's there. Another feature that you can take advantage of that Wasabi offers is data immutability. Data immutability really is the ability to protect your data against accidental or malicious destruction. An immutable object can't be deleted by anybody, not even Wasabi. So let me tell you a little bit how it works. When you create a Wasabi storage bucket, you have the option of making that bucket immutable for the configuration, or for a retention period in increments of days, weeks, months, or years. So if you want to store something in a Wasabi cloud and you say, I want to put this up here for 7 years, compliance for some kind of regulatory reasons, and it cannot be checked and it can't be changed whatsoever, well, we guarantee you that if you put it in an immutable bucket, it won't be changed or deleted by Wasabi or by anybody else, or really by you, unless you destroy the encryption keys. So data immutability is critically important when fighting ransomware, and making sure you provide compliance for HIPAA or FERPA or any other the ERPAs out there. You'll be all set. So touch a bit about performance. So I mentioned earlier that we are up to 6 times faster than S3, Google, or Azure. Storage, the world of storage measures performance in 3 different ways. There's input-output operations per second, or IOPS. There's throughput or bandwidth, and there's latency. And before we get into IOPS, or throughput or latency, I want to talk a little bit about transactions. And transactions are requests for data made by applications, and the process of finding those bits of data and accessing the blocks out of the data storage system to fulfill the requests or to fulfill the requirements. So you'll have an IOPS are typically used to describe the performance in use cases that involve smaller data objects like metadata, and for larger data files which need to be streamed to customer applications or to users in the shortest possible time, throughput is the metric that we use most often. Latency is the measure of time required to process a single storage transaction of a data request or for a storage subsystem. Latency refers to how long it takes for a single data request to be received and for the right data to be found and accessed from storage media in a disk drive. Read latency is often required for a controller to find the proper data blocks, including the time it needs to spin the disk, the platters, and to begin the transfer process. So the question I see most often is this is backup and archive. Why is performance important? Well, it's important because the faster you get your data backed up, the quicker you can move it. You're allowed to move on to another project. So if you can save 10 minutes a day, 60 minutes a week, that's an hour that week that you can focus on doing something else, or it's the folks who work for you can focus on doing something else. An hour a week times, a month, times 2 months, times a year. After a while, it will add up. So the faster you can get your backups done, the better it is. The faster it's done, the less likely the internet's going to have a hiccup or force a restart, or even worse, not complete a backup. And if something does go wrong with your customer's primary storage on-prem and they need to get it back, you'll be able to access it quicker and satisfy the impatient customer a lot faster if you're using Wasabi Cloud Storage. So what I want to talk a little bit now about is why I love MSP 360, or why I love CloudBerry. Before I turn it over to Dave, I want to take a moment to tell everybody why MSP 360 is an important partner for Wasabi. CloudBerry was one of the first partners Wasabi had when we first came to market in 2017. Yeah, it's 2 years. Just over 2 years ago is when we first came to market, and CloudBerry was one of our very first partners. As a matter of fact, I think they might have been, if they're not the first one, they got to be number 2, maybe number 3. And they've been with us since day one. And CloudBerry lets you map your Wasabi account as a network external drive to a Windows PC or to a server. With CloudBerry, you can manage files in Wasabi directly from a Windows Explorer, the same way as if they were on your local drive. You can drag and drop files and send them to and from Wasabi. It's really nice. You can use CloudBerry, MSP 360 with Wasabi. Use the backup with Wasabi, to protect Windows, Mac OS, and Linux machines, virtual servers, business applications like Microsoft SQL Server, Microsoft Exchange. CloudBerry backup supports file system backups, image-based backups, bare metal restores. It does everything. It has great data compression. It allows you to keep your storage bills even lower if it's possible with Wasabi. You can keep them even lower using CloudBerry's data compression. And again, it has encryption that allows you to protect your data in transit. And I mentioned earlier, but the GUI is easy to use. It has setup wizards, and it's simple to schedule backups and configurations. I'm going to stop right there before I go too far and walk all over David's prepared presentation. Before I kick it over to him, what I'm hoping is that you will have taken away from my presentation is that not all clouds are created equal. Some are built, just to deliver high performance, low cost, simple, easy to use cloud storage. You don't have to go to cloud school for 3 months to figure out what you're doing. The important features that you're going to want to understand as you evaluate your options in the cloud are costs, of course. Are there any hidden costs? Can your bills be more predictable? Performance, can you get your data in and out of the cloud quickly? And of course, durability and security. I mean, will your data be protected up there? And can you get it back? Will it be protected for the long haul? Dave, are you with us?
I am.
Wonderful. I'm going to kick it over to you and let you take over, and then have you introduce Hank when you're done.
Sounds good. All right. So before I get started on the meat of the presentation, I just want to reiterate what David said earlier, that CloudBerry Lab is going through a bit of a rebranding. We are the same company, just with a new name that's really focused on IT service providers, hence the shortened MSP 360 versus CloudBerry Lab. So you're going to see us transition to MSP 360 fully over the coming months. You may still see CloudBerry Lab occasionally. You'll start to see MSP 360 more. So just a little FYI, we're the same company. No structural changes within the company itself, just a rebranding as we focus more on MSPs. All right, so I'll try not to reiterate too much of what David covered, but when we talk about, the cloud and what your customers are seeing right now, it's something that we've been saying for a while. I remember Gartner had a paper back in about 7 years ago saying that data set sizes are doubling every 18 to 24 months, and that's still true. I think we're all aware of that, and I think it's something that I probably hope I won't have to keep repeating. But the important thing is that your customers have a lot of data, and that data is growing very fast. So the servers are storing more, desktops are storing more, those NAS devices that you have there for local storage are storing a lot more user-generated content, and that content is very critical to the customer's business. Just imagine a dentist's office without access to patient records, or a doctor's office. That could really take them offline, and it certainly has with things like ransomware. So the data is hugely important. It's hard for them to operate without access to their data, and the important thing is that data needs to be backed up. Not only to protect the customers, but to protect you, right? So the customers need to be protected from the cells, from accidental deletions, from things like hardware and software failures, or disaster through, say, fire or flood or something like that, and malware. I mean, there's certainly been an extraordinary number of ransomware stories that continue to go on. I think recently Texas state offices were hit with ransomware, and they're asking for extraordinary amounts of ransom to recover that data. Baltimore was hit recently too. So this is happening not only to, small businesses, but also to government agencies. It's an issue, especially if you don't have that data properly backed up. Now from you, if you're an MSP, you're providing IT services to your customers, you need to make sure that they're backing up. And that's something that as we talk to, our MSPs, and I think we have over 8,500 right now using our managed backup service and growing. But one of the things that they struggle with as they come to us is they either are not offering backup services yet, and that's usually because they're finding it very hard to monetize the offerings that are out there. A lot of times they're just dealing with solutions that are way too expensive, storage that's too expensive, and they're having a hard time figuring out how they can make money on it. Their customers just don't want to pay that much. So they're looking for solutions that can, get their customers backed up in a managed way, and protected with offsite storage. Now you can do local backups, and sometimes with very small businesses, mom and pop shops, maybe that's all you're going to do. It's a risk, obviously, but it's better than nothing. But MSPs are increasingly looking at the cloud, not surprisingly, and the public cloud in particular as a new target for backups. So next slide. So over the years, there's been a lot of fear of the public cloud. I think a lot of these fears, just like, the reiteration that data set sizes are doubling every 2 years is something that's going away. But there is still some fear out there. A lot of times, companies don't want to give up control of the storage that they currently use. So there's of course fears that it's complicated. It's not really that complicated. That it's slow. Well, maybe that was the case 10 years ago when broadband speeds were extraordinarily slow, but it's not so much the case anymore. Even things that are as slow as 10 megabit upstream should be enough for most of your customers to get their data offsite up into the cloud. That it's expensive. Well, as David had already pointed out, that at Wasabi's cost, that cost is very low per gigabyte. And security is not really an issue, and we'll talk more about sort of the end-to-end encryption that we offer on our end. Hybrid backups, well, that's something you can consider. So you don't have to be too stressed out about only having backups in the cloud. With MSP 360 or in a managed backup service, you can do things like hybrid backups where you're backing up locally. So you have that data accessible for fast restores, and you have local backups of it, fully encrypted, as well as having that data in the cloud too. So you can have it in both places for more redundancy. Storage tiers, well, we don't have to worry about that. Storage tiers can be very complicated if you're working with the public cloud. When do you tier the data? When do you move it over? Can you restore the data from the more archival layers that are offered by some of the other companies out there that offer public cloud storage in a timely manner? With Wasabi, you don't have to worry about that. It's fast, it's inexpensive, and you don't have to worry about when you should tier data or what the results of tiering that data would be in terms of restore speed. And security, right? We offer end-to-end encryption, so that data is encrypted using AES 256 at the source before it even leaves the computer that's being backed up, whether that's a server or an endpoint. And it moves over the wire using TLS, encryption, and then it's stored encrypted in the target. So should anybody get their hands on those backups, there'll be absolutely nothing they can do with them. So David kind of touched on this, your capital expenditures kind of go away, right? So you don't have to, if you don't want to run your own data center, or you've been doing it and you realize, it's not only costly to buy all the equipment, your OpEx expenses can be high too, with electricity and staffing and all that kind of stuff. A lot of those costs go away. So if you're considering not running a private data center anymore, then the cloud is really a perfect alternative to that. Can eliminate a lot of your capital expenditures, no more equipment, lower your OpEx expenses as well by eliminating a lot of the administration and replacing hard drives and things like that as they fail. And you get unlimited, you don't have to worry so much about capacity planning. Now, you should know what kind of capacity you're using, obviously, what your customers are using, and those are things you can get from your billing reports and your dashboards within our managed backup service. So it's a good idea to know kind of how much you're backing up, and that's easy to get. But you don't have to worry about how fast you're going to grow. Should you take on a big client that's going to be backing up, extra 10 terabytes of data, and you're running a local data center, that might mean, buying a lot more drives, a new RAID 5 or RAID 6 array for redundancy, installing that to manage your own data center. That's not something you have to really worry about with the cloud. You sort of get unlimited growth, which is nice. We talked about high availability and durability. That means your data will be available when it's needed, and it's likely to be there, right? You don't want it destroyed. So there's a lot of redundancies built into Wasabi's cloud storage to make sure that you can not only get to the data, but that it'll be protected and safely available when you need it. and a single storage class, which we already talked about. But the other thing is you're paying for what you need, right? So you pay for what you use, and that's the great thing about it. So you don't have to buy a lot in advance, which you might have to with running your own data center. Or if you have 10 terabytes of data that you're backing up with customers, you may want to provision it for 20, 25 terabytes initially, so you have some growth. You don't have to worry about that outlay initially. You're just going to pay for what you use, which is great. Next slide. So a little bit about our managed backup service. So we just say it's powerful and affordable, which is kind of a key word there, backup service, and it was designed for the ground up for MSPs. So one of the things that we did was we decided to, rather than provide private cloud storage with a lock-in, meaning that, if you use our backup software, you're going to have to use our cloud, and if you stop using our backup software, all of those backups in private cloud storage disappear in 30 days. We wanted to put customers in control of their own backup storage by working with public clouds like Wasabi. And so there's no lock-in. So should you ever decide to leave MSP 360, your backups are safe for as long as you want to continue keeping them up in Wasabi. And that also means we're not upcharging you a lot. So there's no, we don't have to worry about profit margins on the private cloud that we're offering and charging you a lot. That puts you in a difficult position as an MSP because you need to charge your customers more than what you're paying because you have expenses, you have rent, you have employees, you have profitability you need to make. You need to live too and put food on the table for you and your family. So we wanted to make it as affordable as possible and leave all of the margins there for you. So if you have customers that can afford to spend a little bit more, and you're working with lower cost products like MSP 360 and Wasabi, you stand to make more money. And if you have a need to tier your offerings for smaller businesses that are more cost conscious and just can't afford as much, you have the ability to tier them that way as well while still making a profit. Now our service is monthly. Some of you are familiar with it, maybe on our old annual contracts, but monthly is the new standard, although you can still do annual and save 20% on your licensing costs. But if you're worried about cash flow and making sure that you're only paying for what you need and what you're using, the monthly service is a great way to do it. It's subscription based, so you're just paying every month for the licenses that you have deployed. And of course, we work very closely with Wasabi. As David mentioned, we've been supporting them for over 2 years now. And the nice thing about it is that it's one of the most popular cloud storage platforms with MSP 360 right now. Customers love the cost, they love the speed, they love the availability, our European customers love that there's a new EU data center because we all know that everybody wants to keep the data in the region where their customers are for legal reasons, for GDPR reasons, for any kind of compliance reasons. And we support things like synthetic full backups, which I may talk a little bit more about later, but this is a way to back up full images, but being able to use all the bits and bytes that are already up in Wasabi to create the next full image rather than having to re-upload everything again. That means faster backups with less data traveling over the wire. So it just makes things a lot more streamlined. And that's something that we support with Wasabi, which is great. Next slide, David. So what can we do? Well, we say we protect everything. So we can protect your Windows endpoints and servers, your Linux desktops or servers, however your customers might be using them, as well as Mac systems. We support both file and image-based backups. So image-based backups right now are on Windows. So if you need to image entire servers, which is what a lot of customers do, the servers that you can't afford to be without, that if you had some type of hardware failure and you needed to rebuild it, you could use our bare metal restore capabilities to recover that entire server in whole, with everything, including the data. But if you're backing up endpoints or you're backing up file servers and you don't so much care about the operating system itself, you can just use our file-based backup and back up those file changes. The other thing is we support smart file backups. So when you're backing up large files, think about your Outlook PST files, those post office files that can be quite large. Gigabytes in size, especially for those that tend to hold on to their data. we can back up just the changes within those files. So we can do those block level backups, just backing up the changes, which is quite nice rather than having to upload those files every day new. So that saves backup time and backup storage. We also support virtual environments, including Hyper-V and VMware, that allow you to do host level backups of the VMs running in those environments for a single license cost. If you're running certain Microsoft applications like Microsoft SQL Server, relational database, as well as Microsoft Exchange, their on-prem version, obviously, we can support that. And if you do have customers that are using some of the hosted services like Office 365 and Google G Suite, we also have the ability to back up those environments. Now, you protected everything, but you don't protect it. You protect it, you know, for protection's sake, you protect it because you may need to restore it someday. So you can restore everything anywhere. So you can restore files that you need from any type of backup, whether it's a file, image, or a virtual machine. So if you're backing up a full image of a server, you know, you don't have to worry about having to restore an entire volume or the entire server to a new machine or to a virtual environment in order to get a specific file back. You can just pick which files you want. Everything is versioned using our retention capabilities, so you can decide how many backup versions are there and what you want to restore. So it's pretty flexible in that regard. You can also restore image backups to, you know, physical Hyper-V or VMware, or restore them to some of the cloud environments through their infrastructure as a service features. So if you need to restore an image, you have a lot of flexibility about where that image goes. Next slide. All right, so just quickly, what do we do? Well, we're subscription-based, we're backup as a service. We provide all the centralized administration and monitoring with the hosted service. Things like automatic agent upgrades, they're under your control. There'll be a sandbox there. When a new version of an agent comes out, you can play with it on-prem. Make sure it fixes a feature if you're having a problem, or test it to make sure it's working okay. Once you decide that it's ready, you make it available to your customers, and those agents at all your customers will automatically upgrade themselves. There's no reason to have to revisit them, to remote into them, to install the agents. It's all automatic from that point on. You can report on everything, including how much storage they're using, which makes billing customers easy. We do have integration with popular RMM and PSA solutions through ConnectWise, Autotask, and others. So we can create tickets when there's backup problems in certain environments. We can also, help you auto install the agent the first time through a PSA system using our, command line as well as our APIs. And we have full rebranding. So, you don't have to sell this as an MSP 360 solution. You can sell this as whatever your company name is. Put your own logos in there, put your own name in there, say you're selling it as, your own backup solution, and market it that way. It's a great way to keep your name up front with your customers, and looks like you're offering sort of a unified set of products, because you're going to be offering more than backup. You can have RMM in there. You're going to have antivirus and malware protection in there. So you're going to have a lot of things that you're doing with these customers, and it's just a great way to keep your name up front rather than having to advertise another company service that you're using. So it's good for the MSPs. Next slide. All right, so we talked about file image backup. I mentioned synthetic backups. Hybrid backups are great, so you can keep them local and in the cloud. We do full data compression as well as block level backups to reduce the amount of data we have to back up day to day, as well as full end-to-end encryption. You can back up things like NTFS permissions and restore them. That way you don't have to worry about reapplying security on those files you restored. Flexible file retention and versioning. We have bandwidth controls, especially if you're dealing with customers that are, say they have low upstream bandwidth and you're worried, whether or not you're going to affect their day-to-day operations. You can, put schedules in there and say, for this customer, during the day, limit upstream bandwidth to, say, 512 kilobytes per second, and at night use unlimited bandwidth outside of business hours. That way, backups can run, but they won't impact business operation. Next slide. All right, so our prices, which is important because you're reselling this service and you need to make money. Our prices start at only $6 a month. That's for file and image-based backup. That's before quantity discounts. Once you start getting up to 20 or more, I believe, the discounts will start to apply. The more you use, the more the price comes down. I think you can get it just over $4 a month at full quantity. There's a little more expensive for SQL Server Exchange. As I mentioned, VMware and Hyper-V are licensed per CPU, give you 2 CPU sockets, which is enough for most commodity-based hardware. And that covers all the VMs within that virtual environment, which is quite kind of nice on the host. We work directly with Wasabi for your cloud. You work directly with Wasabi, so you'd open an account using the links that David provided. You're never locked in. And this means this combined solution allows you to offer backup services to all your customers at a price that they can afford while you're able to make money on. And that's the important thing. Next slide, David. Okay, so we're going to let actually Hank take over. I'll ask him one question. I'm just going to set him off and let you tell you his story. So Hank, Blue Sky Technologies is the company where he is, and let's move to the next slide. And so Hank is a customer not only of Wasabi, but of MSP360 CloudBerry. So I'll just, Hank, just unmute yourself. I'll just ask you to tell everybody on the call, since you are an actual customer, just a little bit about your company, the types of customers that you service, and how you came to the decision to use the combined MSP360 managed backup with Wasabi for your cloud storage. I don't hear Hank yet. Is he still muted?
Hey, Dave, this is David.
Oh,
Hey, you know what? It's me. I actually just dropped Hank while controlling the buttons. Instead of unmuting him, I dropped him.
Okay, so we'll wait for him to call back. Well, I put this slide up, so just while we get Hank to come back. So Hank's company, Blue Sky Technologies, they've been around now for about 14 years. They're based in very beautiful, if you've ever been there, Newport, Rhode Island. And they primarily deal with US-based healthcare companies. So these are small businesses like dental offices and doctors' offices that need managed IT services. He chose MSP360 with Wasabi. He's currently protecting over 350 endpoints, and he just broke the 15 terabyte data barrier just recently of really, HIPAA compliant healthcare data. So he's got to make sure that data is protected. He's got to make sure it's fully encrypted so nobody can get their hands on it, should they get their hands on it, of healthcare data. So Hank, I don't know if you can hear me.
Good morning, David.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I'm going to turn it over to Hank. Sorry. Hank, go ahead. Take it over.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about our business. Blue Sky started almost 15 years ago, so we were one of the early birds to this cloud backup arena. We started this Blue Sky because of something I knew all too well, and knowing well that backups don't always work when they're supposed to. Before Blue Sky, I sold software in the healthcare marketplace, and so many times I'd get a call from a customer because they had their system go down, probably a disk drive had gone bad, and they'd lost all their data. And if you've ever had one of those calls as a support person or business owner, you know exactly what I mean. Your stomach sinks, and you pray that they've got a backup. And all too often they didn't. When I got started in this, tapes and disk drives were still pretty popular, and we all know they didn't work all the time. So we knew that we needed something different, and that's really how we started Blue Sky. I will say this, that there's a lot that's changed in 15 years, a whole lot. But one thing that hasn't changed, and that is a really reliable backup. If you've got that, you've got the world. In the early days when I got started with Blue Sky, we had a little bit of a backstop, and that was that there was some paper to back up what was the data trail. Today, as we all know, there's no more paper, so there's no longer any support mechanism coming from anything but what's on the system. As David mentioned, we store now more than 15 terabytes, and it's growing rapidly. And our customers know, as we know, how important their data is. one of our biggest selling points when we talk to a client is that we let them know we understand how important electronic medical record is, and they're in good hands with us. And that's truly the reason why we're involved with CloudBerry and Wasabi. We got started a few years ago with Wasabi first, I should say, with CloudBerry, and a year or so ago moved to Wasabi. CloudBerry for us is just a godsend. It changed dramatically how we work and our ability to grow our business. I mean, all too often, all of us who have looked at products or been forced to say, gee, we're not happy with what we're working with, but do we take that step, that next step to go look for something new? And sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Well, in the case of CloudBerry, that was absolutely not true. When we left our former provider of software, it was light years different. CloudBerry's software is feature rich, and it enables us to grow our business dramatically without having to increase any of our support staff. And that's big, because all of us want to try to make more money every year. But unfortunately, as we're trying to make more money each year, that means added costs and staff, insurance, you name it, payroll, etc. So because of CloudBerry, as we were getting ready for this presentation this week, they asked me, well, so what has it done for you besides enabling you to grow your business? Well, it's enabled us to go after larger customers. We had a customer call us, huge customer here in Rhode Island, that something that we would have never thought about going after. But today we're backing up a couple terabytes of their information, and we sleep well at night. The other thing that I can tell you is that alongside CloudBerry comes Wasabi, and what a huge difference Wasabi has made to our backups. If any of you work in healthcare, and I would say that our physicians' offices are small to medium-sized practices, there's no inside IT staff. So it's usually the office manager or a doctor who, in his or her ability, tries to diagnose what's going on. For us, when you have a fast backup on the Wasabi side, and I would say it's dramatically faster than anything else that we've used, that makes for a great clean backup every night. And if you've got a clean backup every night, you've got a heck of a lot less support costs. And so when you've got CloudBerry on one side, that's really a fantastic product and really worth working with, and then you marry that with Wasabi, you've got a situation where, at least for me, and I think for probably a lot of you out there, if you can sleep better at night, you come to work better the next day to grow your business, and then it's a happily ever after story. So for us, we've been with probably in the 15 years, maybe 3 or 4 different providers of software. As David said, that CloudBerry doesn't make you, or you're not married to them to have storage, so you're free to come and go as you wish with who you like. For us, in the past 3 or 4 experiences, we were married to the software provider that we were using that provided us a storage. Today, that's not the case, and we're thrilled with it. Were we a little apprehensive in the beginning taking that step? Yes. But now, be able to have that control and that ability to do what we need and find the very best vendor out there, again, Wasabi is the choice. They asked me, the Wasabi people said, so how's our support? And I responded, in almost 2 years that we've been using them, we haven't had to call them. That's pretty amazing. And on the support side with CloudBerry, I can tell you that the calls are minimal, but whenever you call them, they're there. The support staff is amazing. And on the sales side and the account management side, those folks listen, and they know how to, if you've got an issue, they know how to fix it. And for me, as a small business owner, that's all that you need. So, and long story short for us, as we continue to grow our business and grow it significantly. We do it and we sleep well because of CloudBerry and Wasabi. So that's our story. Thank you.
Okay, Hank, thanks so much for sharing your story. It's always good to hear from customers. We love to have them on to really tell you exactly what they have experienced and why they chose a particular solution. So I want to thank Hank for taking the time out of his busy day for being here. David, I'll just run over the slide real quick and then I'll let you wrap up. I'm trying to get to all the questions in the Q&A panel. If we don't get to you, as David said earlier, we'll try to send you a reply privately. Here's just a couple links for everyone. If you're interested in just seeing more about Hank's company, Blue Sky Technologies, please click on that link at the top. We know the MSP community is very close and there's a lot of information sharing out there. So if you're interested to see kind of the services that he's offering, go ahead, check that out. On the MSP 360 side, if you want to sign up for Managed Backup free trial, I believe it's a 14-day free trial, but if you need more time, because you're going to get 30 days free with Wasabi, just talk to your account manager when they reach out and they'll be more than happy to extend the trial for you. So you can play around with, you know, our MSP 360 Managed Backup with Wasabi. You can sign up very easily, no credit card required. If you want to see all of our solutions for Wasabi on our website, there's a link for that. And we always ask, we have MSPs on the call. Doug Hazelman, who's our VP of Technical Marketing over at MSP 360, he hosts a podcast that you may be familiar with called the MSP Voice Podcast. It's not about MSP 360. It's really about MSPs, right? MSPs telling stories about, you know, things that they're struggling with, things that they're happy with, just about their business. So it's a good way if you want to just see what's going on with other MSPs or be a guest. We're always looking for new guests. So if you have an interest in, you know, spending a half hour with Doug, just having, you know, just a Q&A, you know, chit chat on a podcast, something that you can also market at your end that you're on it. Head over to mspvoice.com and you can quickly sign up and Doug will reach out to you. On the Wasabi side, very easy to sign up. I've done it myself. Just hit that wasabi.com sign up link, sign up for your 30-day free trial and use it with MSP 360 and see if it's a good solution for you. We have solution architects available. Wasabi has technical folks to answer questions if you have any needs. So don't struggle with anything, especially, you know, on the MSP 360 side where you might be confused about some of the configuration options. Reach out. We have folks available all the time to help you get through it. We also have an active forum that you can hit if you have any questions.
Hey, Dave, this is David. Hey, I want to echo what you said about Doug's podcast. It's excellent. And if you guys have not had a chance to listen to it, please do, because I learn something all the time when I listen to him. Second, I want to give a big thank you to Hank. Hank, I enjoy listening to you talk as well. You know what? I came out of this presentation today knowing a lot more actually about CloudBerry and about what Hank does than I did going in. So I feel like I've gotten something out of this webinar. I hope that all our attendees have also gotten something out of it. If you haven't, let me know. Because I know that there's some questions that are out there. 3 questions I want to address real quick because I didn't get the chance to type them into the system. One, how does Wasabi and Backblaze compare? If you're not familiar with Backblaze, they too are a cloud storage vendor, one of the newer ones. I call them 2.0. So not just AWS, Azure, or Google. You also have options with Backblaze and Wasabi, of course. Handful of others. I think that if you go to the drop-down menu in the managed service piece, CloudBerry piece, you'll see a list of maybe 30 different vendors out there to choose from. That's the nice thing about CloudBerry is they give you lots of options. But yeah, Backblaze is also an option. Wasabi is an option. You have more options than just 3. Secondly, another question about data center locations. Right now, we are up and running on the East Coast US, West Coast US, and Amsterdam. We'll have more data centers coming up before the end of the year, some announcements of those. So we'll be spreading out internationally and more in the US. And then there was also a question about bucket costs. The $5.99 per terabit is per data storage, not just for bucket. If you want multiple buckets, you can have multiple buckets. If you want to cram a terabit into a bucket, that's fine. If you want to cram 20 terabits into a bucket, that's fine. So the price really is based on the amount of storage you have, not the amount of buckets you use. And I know, Dave, you were able to answer your questions online as well. Again, I got to thank everybody for attending. We had a great turnout today, much more than I expected. I learned a bunch. I hope you did too. I'm not going to keep you guys much longer. We are now 1 minute over. We promised that we would be done at 11 o'clock Eastern time. So I'm going to let you guys go back to work. And if you have any questions, please let us know. And we're going to do this again. It was a lot of fun. And I appreciate everyone's attendance today. Dave, thank you. Hank, thank you very much. Look forward to talking to everybody soon.